Hi, Gary Chillingworth here for Airgun World Magazine, Shooting and Country TV. Welcome to Life at the Range and welcome to our brand new series, Back to Basics with Daystate. Or to be more precise, it should be Back to Basics with Daystate, Brocock and MTC, but it didn't quite have the ring of Back to Basics with Daystate. So what is our series all about? Well, basically, we want to go back to the start. Now, this has got nothing to do with the fact that I'm shooting really badly at the moment and I need to go back to the start and learn it all again. But what I've had a lot of emails from people saying, Gary, love the videos, but we're struggling to find stuff and a coherent series of literally going from step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. We've now got nearly 120 videos on Shooting and Country TV, and I'm well aware that it can be difficult sometimes to find what you need. So what we're going to do is we've brought back to life our website, lifeattherange.com. And what we're going to do is all of the back to basics stuff will obviously still be here on YouTube, but if you go to lifeattherange.com, there will be literally a list, so you can go, I need to know something about kneelers today, click on that, and that will take you, it's basically going to be a page full of links, so that if you just want to find instructional stuff, go to lifeattherange.com. Now, before we get into today, we're working with Daystate. Daystate, or Tony Belas and Daystate, have been absolutely amazing sponsoring the video. We've still got, obviously, the surplus store in Crawley. They're still our main sponsors. And if you want a discount at the surplus store, use the code GC5 at checkout and you'll get a 5% discount. So if you see us using anything on the channel that you fancy a go with, contact them and you'll get 5% off. Now, Daystate have been very, very strict with what we can and can't do, and not in a bad way. Tony has said he does not want this back to basics to be product reviews and things like that for Daystate. He just wants shooters to get the information, and yes, we're going to be using Daystate guns when we can, but I'm to focus on just departing the information and not doing product reviews. However, they are going to be sending us some kit, so if you would like me to do a separate video, not part of Back to Basics, actually looking at the kit they send us, I'll more than happily do that as well. But when you come on Back to Basics, yes, we're going to be using Daystate and Brocock equipment, but Daystate want us to purely focus on imparting the information to you and not going, oh, look at this Daystate Grand Prix, isn't it amazing? So huge thanks to them, and we will be, obviously we're going to be using some spring guns and stuff like that, so we won't always be using just, you know, Daystate and Brocock equipment. So what are we going to be looking at? Well, we're going to be using this quite a lot. This is my BRK Ghost, MTC Connect on top, so we're going to be using this quite a lot, but also we're going to be looking at some other stuff. Now today we are going to be looking at gun fit and buying your first gun. Well, buying your first gun more than gun fit. However, these are a few things we're going to be looking at. Buying your first gun, setting it up to shoot for the first time, building accuracy, parallax error and how to overcome it, mainly using the Connect, building a range card, kneeling and supported shots, improve your standards, rifle competitions, FT, HFT and bench rest, perfect pellets, etc, etc. But we are here to be led by you. So if there is something specifically you want us to look at technique wise, let me know and we will look into it. And what we're going to be doing is getting experts in their field to come in and help us, because I'm not an expert at everything. I'm not really an expert at anything, but I know a lot of people who are. So that's enough waffle. On with today's video, and what we're going to do is we're going to be look at buying your first gun. Welcome to Back to Basics with Daystate. Okay, so you want to go out and buy your first rifle. There's a very, very good chance if you're watching this video, you've had some experience shooting in the past. You might have owned a BSA Meteor in the past. You might have shot a friend's gun in the garden or at a club. and you're thinking, I want to go out and I want to buy my first gun. Rifles range anything from a few £100 to £3,000 or £4,000. And I'll let you into a little secret. You do get what you pay for. If you're spending £2,000 or £3,000 on a Daystate Red Wolf Grand Prix, an Air Arms XTI 50, a Steyr FT, they've got match grade barrels, they've got match grade triggers, they're fully adjustable, and they're everything you could ever want. Whereas if you're going to go and buy a very, very basic gun, something like a Gamo, very, very good rifles, mainly Springers, or Gamo Fox, they are an entry level rifle. Still accurate, still fun, still great rifles, but they're not going to have the match grade barrels, they're not going to have the match grade triggers, they're not going to have all of the funky stuff that a top end rifle is going to be. You know, if you buy a Ferrari or a Ford Focus, the Ferrari is going to be a very, very different car. So what do you buy for your first rifle? Well, you've got to ask yourself what type of shooting you're going to do. If you're going to be a hunter or a plinker or something like that, and you want to be able to do multiple shots quickly, you're going to need something with a magazine system. If you're going to be an HFT shooter, you want something that's predominantly single shot. Now, there are rifles, and this game, we'll look at our Ghost here. Our Ghost here has a single shot adapter at the back here. Now, this is a magazine rifle. It comes with a magazine, I think it's 10 or 12 shots. And if you're shooting an HFT, you would have to remove that magazine after every shot whilst you're moving around the course. But you can go to PRS and you can buy a single shot adapter for it. So this is all guns to all people. You can do the same with a lot of like Air Arms and other different manufacturers. But I think what a lot of people ask is, can you spend not a lot of money to get into the sport and be accurate? Well, certainly if you shoot Springers, yes, you can buy something like an HW97. They're £300 or £400. Sorry, no, not 300 or 400. No, they're just over 4 now. TX200s, I think they're up in the 5s. You can buy basic PCPs like the S400. You can go to Daystate and look at the Huntsman series, all very, very good. But the more you spend, within reason, the better the rifle you're going to get. Now, you also need to think about what you're doing and how you're going to be shooting. Are you going to be, I'll put some pictures up, are you going to be laying on the deck with the butt of your rifle, at this point here, resting on the ground? Now, if you're going to do that, you're probably going to need a rifle with an adjustable cheek piece. Or you're going to need a way of building that cheek piece up. Because sometimes with a rifle, if that's touching the ground and you haven't got an adjustable cheek piece, and your scope's up here, you'll end up with a floating head, and that's no good to anybody. Rifles like this, and I've actually set this one up this actually works off the deck very, very well for me with this scope. When you're shooting up the peg, see, that's absolutely perfect. It's absolutely great. So if you're going to rest the butt of the rifle on the ground, having an adjustable cheek piece is certainly going to help you. If you're going to shoot out the shoulder, you can go for a rifle which they would call like something like a Huntsman class, where it's, you know, there's nothing adjustable there. So you need to know what you want, how you want to shoot. That's why it's a good idea to go to a club and try different people's rifles and see what type of shooting you want to do. Now, new and second hand. If you go to a lot of gun shops, they'll have a second-hand section. Most gun clubs will know of people who are selling second-hand rifles, and that can certainly be a great way of getting into the sport, buying something second-hand. There are certain guns that are easier to work on than others. If you're buying a second-hand rifle, it probably won't have a warranty, so you may have issues in the future. I'm a big fan of the HW100, however, they are known for the seals to leak a little bit. So you need to know that at some point in the future, you'll need to take it to a gunsmith and actually have the seals replaced and things like that. It's not a big job, it's not particularly expensive, it's just something you factor in to your owning experience. Things like styres. Styres, if you use them in the wet, an LG 110 and LG 100, they're an indoor rifle. You've got to take them apart and you've got to clean them. There are lots of YouTube videos on how to do that. They're very easy to work on. Something like the Anschutz, I think it's the 8105, the trigger has got something like 80 something separate parts in it. You need a clockmaker to be able to take one apart. So if you're thinking of buying a second-hand rifle, it's worth going on the forums and seeing how reliable they are, if they've got any inherent issues, and then seeing whether or not these are things that are within your capability or within your budget to have fixed. Guns are like cars. They do break and they need to be repaired. So sometimes buying brand new, something with a good warranty, is certainly worth doing. But if you're prepared to roll the dice and go for something second hand, you can get some great bargains. Just know what you're going for. The next thing we want to look at is weight and length. Many years ago, I had a rifle. It was the top of the range for that particular manufacturer, and I couldn't shoot it. It was quite long, it was quite heavy, had a big heavy laminate stock, and when it was on the deck, it was absolutely amazing. It was planted. But the minute I started doing a supported standing shot, I didn't have the upper body strength to be able to control it, and my scores dumped. I got rid of that rifle and bought the next one down in that manufacturer's group of rifles. It was lighter, it was shorter, so that when I was shooting here, all of the weight was further back and I was able to control it much, much better. So be realistic. When you're in the gun shop and you're picking up your first rifle, if you're holding it and you're thinking, this feels heavy, and you're holding it like that, and chances are it won't have a scope on it, and all of a sudden you think, oh, that's a bit unwieldy, assuming that you're going to need to go to the gym and build up some muscle and shoot it, maybe that's not the gun for you. Now, weight does give stability. If you're there and you've got a 15-pound rifle and there's a little bit of wind, it's going to take a lot more wind energy to get the rifle to start moving. Like the difference, if you try and slap a bowling ball or slap a tennis ball, the bowling ball's going nowhere, the tennis ball will fly across the room. But if you're standing there and it's too heavy for you, it's too long for you, look at something else. There's lots of different rifles. Say, this is a bullpup. This is as accurate as anything else that I've got on my gun rack, full size, whatever. If you need to shoot a bullpup, shoot a bullpup. People might say to you, oh, it's a bullpup. Just tell them to go away. It's got a full-length barrel and everything like that. If this fits your body shape and you can shoot it accurately, shoot a bullpup. Pick a rifle that you feel comfortable with from the off, and you're going to shoot much, much better. So you walk into your gun shop and you look on the racks and there's lots of shiny rifles, and the guy says to you, so PCP, spring, gas ram, CO2, what do you want? And you go, I've been told to shoot spring first because it will build my technique. Utter cobblers. If you've never shot before, do not go out and buy, well, if you want to go out and buy a spring gun, go out and buy a spring gun. I'm not your mum. Shooting is hard. You've got lots to learn. You've got range finding to learn, you've got wind to learn, you've got elevation to learn, you've got trigger technique to learn, you've got holds to learn, you've got a ton of stuff to learn if you're going to take up this shooting sport. And all of a sudden now you want to shoot a Springer, which acts differently from shooting that way to that way. If you grip it hard on that side and not on that side, and you're not perfectly central, the pellets going flying over there. The triggers are not as good. They are a beast to tame. Now, if you can go out and do it, crack on, and I will give you all the plaudits for doing it. But get yourself a decent PCP and learn your technique first. Now, Obviously, if you buy a PCP, you've then got to buy an air tank or a compressor, or if you're a member of a club, chances are some clubs will allow you to fill up there. If you go for something like this with a huge, great big buddy bottle, you could fill this up at a club, and that's going to give you 300 or 400 shots for practicing at home. And if you go back to the club following week, you can fill it up again. Obviously, speak to them first because you're using a hell of a lot of their air. But if you buy a gun that's maybe got a 40 or 50 shot count and you want to practice at home and you haven't got a tank or a compressor, you're going to go into the garden, you're going to fire 30 shots and now you can't shoot anymore. I mean, you can get a pump. Yeah, I'm not energetic enough for that. But that's something you've got to factor in. A tank is going to be a couple £100. Every 5 years you need to have it tested. That's another 40, 50 quid. And it costs you about 10 quid to fill it up. Get the biggest tank you can, and then you're good. You can look at compressors, but yeah, so PCPs, you need to buy the gun, you need to buy the tank, you need to buy the whip and all that charge up. Spring guns, you don't, you just cock them and off you go. Gas rams, there are gas rams out there, essentially a spring gun, but they're a little bit more harsh. And CO2 are absolutely amazing for pistols and for fun, but in main competition, I don't think I've ever seen anyone shoot a CO2 in competition. Just doesn't happen. So I would look personally, spring guns or PCP, but if you're absolutely new to this sport and if you can afford it, go for a PCP first. A question that often comes up is regulated or non-regulated, and what does that mean? Well, on a regulated rifle, you've got this huge, great big cylinder here. And then you've essentially got another chamber somewhere within here. So the air comes out there, sits in the chamber there, and from that chamber, it then comes out through the firing valve and pushes the pellet down the barrel. With an unregulated PCP, the air comes from here via a valve, straight down the barrel and pushes the pellet away. And as this air drops, you can get fluctuations in power coming out the barrel. Now, I'll give you a perfect example. I've got an HFT 500, which is an unregulated rifle. It's a stupendously accurate gun. I fill it to 180 bar, and between 180 bar and 110 bar, it gives a 3 to 4 foot per second variance. That is as good as any regulated rifle I've ever owned. However, if I filled it to 200 bar, it would be, I think it's actually dropped. I haven't done it in a long time. If I filled it to 200 bar, it would drop, and instead of a 4 or 5 foot per second variance, it will be like a 20 foot per second variance, because I'm outside of what we call its sweet spot. With an unregulated rifle, a rifle like the S400 with a knock open valve, or the HFT 500, you get accuracy, but you've got to know where the rifle's sweet spot is. General rule of thumb is somewhere between 170 bar and 110 bar. But that's why if you're going to buy a rifle, the first thing you buy is a chronograph as well. Now, you can buy cheap ones on eBay that read in meters per second. They're about 30 quid. They're absolutely fine. I've got an LMBR R2A from Ramsbottom's. They're absolutely great. They're what we use in the Nationals and the Worlds. But chronographs you can keep an eye on the power of your gun. You can spot when you've got issues. And if you put like an LMBR down range, don't shoot it. But if you put it down range, you can use it for pellet testing and see which pellets carry more speed down range. So that's your choice. Regulated just makes life easier. You can fill it in, you get more shots per fill, and you get a consistency out the barrel. Unregulated rifle, you get less shots per fill, but you've got to know where the sweet spot is. But once you know that, they're no less accurate. Now, the other thing you can do is you can buy a basic rifle to start with. Again, this BRK Ghost came out in its basic form, and I've added this this shelf underneath the single shot tray. This is an aftermarket butt pad. I did have a PRS one on there before. This is the 3D printed one I'm testing out. I took the there was a a rail on the top. I took that off, attached that. It's got a slightly longer silencer, and the gun is modular. So I can adjust it to the way that I want it to be. Now, there are plenty of other guns you can do that with, and there are many manufacturers who do aftermarket stocks. So if you are thinking about getting into the sport and you want to buy something basic to start with, buy a rifle that you can buy an aftermarket stock with. Buy one that's actually got aftermarket parts that you can buy and attach and just gradually upgrade as you go along. And that makes it a very budget friendly way of getting into the sport. You can buy the basic gun first and then adjust it as you go along. Now obviously something that's really important to think about is caliber. Do you go for 177? Do you go for 22? Which is the better caliber? Well, that's going to be an argument that's going to rage until the end of time. All that we know is that we all look down on the people who shoot other calibers that aren't 177 or 22. In competition, if you want to shoot the 22 class, you're going to be shooting against some really, really good shooters. You've got to be good at range finding. A 22 pellet flies in more of an arc than a 177. A 177 flies flatter. If you take a standard JSB Diablo running at 12 foot-pounds, that's going to run at just under 800 feet per second. A standard AA Field in 22, I think it's going to be around about 600 feet per second. It's flying slower, so it's more affected by the wind. So you've got to be obviously better at judging your range because you've got more of an arc, and you've got to be better at judging your wind. If you're a hunter and you've got a laser rangefinder and you know your ranges and everything like that, then there is no doubt that a 22 will hit harder. It creates a bigger wound channel. If you're a hunter, it's what a lot of people go for. Also, you don't get as much over penetration, I've been told, with 22s than you do with 177. People I know hunt say that sometimes when they're shooting at rabbits, a 177 will just zip straight through, whereas a 22 just hits with a bigger punch. If, however, you're just going to be plinking in the garden, 177 pellets are considerably cheaper than 22 because they use less lead. Also, there is a bigger range of pellets. If you go in and you want to buy 22s, you've got AA Fields, which are great pellets at about 18 grains. You've got JSBs and you've got JSB RS, which are about 13. You've got some heavier ones and some lighter ones. But if you look at 177s, there is a much, much bigger range of pellets that you can buy. Also, you know, we're going to get into pellets big time later. Some people say, well, should I buy crosshead pellets, you know, Sabo pellets, whatever. If you're starting out, just stick with a standard Diablo pellet. Be honest with you, if you walk onto an HFT course, 99% of people are going to be using H&Ns, Air Arms or JSB, and they're all going to be Diablo style pellets. If you want to use slugs, that's fine, but you've got to have a proper barrel that shoots slugs. Apparently if you shoot slugs out of some barrels you can do damage, but stick to a Diablo pellet. And to start off with, personally, I would say stick with 177 unless you're hunting with a laser rangefinder. And finally, we're coming to security and transporting of your rifles, and that's something that's very, very important. I couldn't go just walking out on the street with this rifle the way it is. It would need to be in a case. Now, some people like to use public transport, and the law states that if you're going to go on public transport, you need permission of the carrier. As you know, I'm a train driver, as some of you may know, I'm a train driver, and you can't just go walking onto one of my trains with a rifle in a case. Even if you have permission, some people do not like advertising the fact that they're carrying a gun. So I've known of people who use a case for a double base and they put their rifle in that. Basically try and make it look as inconspicuous as possible. A good hard case that's lockable is a very important thing to have. The law states that if your rifle is at home, and believe it or not, this is true, If somebody under the age of 18 breaks into your house and gets access to your rifle, you could still be in trouble because you have given them access to a gun. Don't shoot the messenger. I know it's ridiculous, but there was somebody who was prosecuted for it because they had their gun on a gun rack in a locked house. They were a single person on their own, nobody else, and somebody broke in and got hold of one of their guns, and the police knocked on their door and they got questioned for it. I don't know if they got prosecuted. However, if you have a hard case, you keep your gun in it, you padlock it, and you maybe just put a chain around it and chain it to a radiator, or actually don't keep guns near radiators, they don't react well, but chain it to a bed frame or do something like that. Put a hook in a cupboard so that you can padlock your thing to it. You've shown that you've done everything you can to keep that gun safe. Also, when you're transporting the rifles around, obviously take the magazines out. If you can, keep the ammunition in the glove box and not in the case where the thing is, just in case plods pull you over. I'd always recommend getting insurance. It's always worth having. And that's the other thing. Think about what car you've got. If you've got I've got a huge, great big Skoda Superb estate, and we can put 4 guns in the back of that and bags and everything like that, and it's absolutely great. If you're driving around in a Mini, which I also used to have, my HFT 500 won't fit in the boot of that in a case. This will. So if you've got a small car and you want to keep your gun in the boot and you don't want it on display, sitting in the passenger seat or the back seat or something like that, obviously in a case, you might need to buy something like this BRK Ghost in a small case so that it will fit in the boot of your car. So sometimes think about storage, transportation and things like that. Well, I think that's about it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. This is part 1. Next video we're going to be getting some shooting done because we're actually going to be setting up a gun with the scope for the first time and showing you how to do that. Obviously, if there's anything you want to look at, please let me know. Please, if you're going to go onto the surplus store in Crawley, online, www.surplusstore.com, or I'll put it across the bottom. Use the code GC5 for a 5% discount and show Daystate some love, because it's been great the fact that they're sponsoring our series. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you all again on the range very, very soon. Ta-da!